Accommodation available to holidaymakers at the popular Port Stephens has become scarce as hotels, units and caravan parks are fully booked throughout the holiday season.
Over the last few days, everything has been booked out. We can see the traffic in the streets, we can see the people on the beaches, we can see all the cruise boats full of people.
With plenty of water and land activities to keep all members of the family occupied, it's no wonder the picturesque bay attracts people of all ages. Port Stephens Tourist Centre says the increased holiday population is due to more than good weather.
It's the beautiful area of Port Stephens. It's the bay that has no pollution in it. It's the beaches, the fantastic beaches that we've got here, and the fact that we're very close to Sydney and the Hunter region, that people find it very easy to come here.
The Tourist Centre will try to even out visitors to the area over the next year, hoping to attract more holidaymakers over the winter months.
Day 6 of the championships this afternoon, and already the titles have unearthed plenty of young talent.
There's a lot of juniors and you can see them day by day, they're improving. So you get a whole season's worth of sailing in a week, so it's good for the kids.
Dwarfed by the bigger boats enjoying an afternoon cruise, the 200-strong fleet prepared for Heat 4 of the championships. The group then sent off on the 7 nautical mile course. The senior one-ups were first away. Young South Queenslander Kyle Robson, the title leader. After a 4th and 2 firsts in the opening 3 heats, he was again trying to keep out of reach. With the wind gusting at little more than 8 knots in the early stages, the race was there for the taking. Tactics again playing a crucial role in the 1 kilometre stretch to the first buoy. On arrival, Andrew Fee and Hot Stuff was first to turn, but when he touched the mark and was forced to make a 360-degree penalty turn, it opened the way for Sydney's Robert Persson and Time and Tide. Few changes by the giant mark, and while the field was starting to bunch, the challengers had left their charge far too late. Time and Tide went on to record victory from Hot Stuff. In the 2-up juniors, title favourites It's a Menace and Just Do It were upstaged by Fire 3. It was a Queensland trifecta for the first 3 legs. Sandy Cavill and Scott Webster went on to record their first victory of the carnival. There are 2 heats remaining.
It's a paradise for children, a $370,000 playground unlike any other. With Vera the Mermaid looking on, children can push, pull and climb the pooled sea creatures to activate jets and water spouts. Only days old, it's clear the computer-operated playground is already a success.
It's been given a real workout, and I think the verdict, as you can see, is that it is immensely popular.
Around 50,000 people visit the Central Coast over the Christmas holiday period. Wyong Council hoping the development will help capture a lucrative slice of that tourist market.
People are just massing to the area. We're very pleased, the shopkeepers are pleased, and it's really getting used, and that's what we want.
The entire project is expected to be finished in March. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
Representative duties forced a number of players out of the Waratah-Mayfield-Hamilton-Wickham clash at Passmore, but after winning the toss and electing to bat, Waratah still managed to keep the runs ticking. A half-century for Matt Trail helped ours to fall for 131 at lunch, before Newcastle veteran Greg Arms and Brian Gary set about building a bigger total. A tight bowling effort by Hamwick's Ian Rogers kept the home side in the match, but the partnership was proving hard to crack, Arms maintaining his solid pace while Gary opted for the long shots to the boundary. It was all going well until he smashed 1 ball too many. Hamwick's reply next week. At the number 1 sports ground, a great start for Newcastle City until Cardiff Boolaroo's Craig Salembus fired up after lunch. Salembus bashed Andrew Way for 18 runs off just 1 over to give a much-needed boost to the run rate. Not even a bowling change could stop the onslaught, Cardiff slogging its way to a big total, thanks mainly to Salembus's knock of 43 off just 41 balls.
Beneath towering cliffs on a riverbank at the headwaters of the Colo River, the word help had been spelt out using tree branches and sticks. However, the message was never noticed from the air, found instead by two bushwalkers.
Never seen anything like this before. Then we saw the garbage bags, and very soon after that we found the body.
The 32-year-old man from Bathurst had sought shelter in a rock crevice. His possessions, contained in two garbage bags, showed he was unprepared to survive in the bush, armed with only a small backpack and running shoes, no maps, no compass, and most importantly, no provisions.
There's no food anywhere to be found on him or his belongings, and I couldn't even find a pack of matches or evidence that he'd lit in a fire.
It took the bushwalkers almost 2 days to trek out and notify police. Early indications are the body may have laid undiscovered for almost a month.
On an initial investigation, it appears that there's no suspicious circumstances.
No name has yet been released. A post-mortem will be carried out in Sydney tomorrow. Phil Hind, NBN News.
The Breakers flew into Belmont this afternoon. The trip to Adelaide earning yet another draw, their 7th this season. But considering the changes to the team with the suspension of Harry James and the unavailability of young Socceroo Clayton Zane, coach John Cosmina was pleased with the performance.
I was quite happy with the result. It's the third week in a row now we've got a result, and the last two of those have been away. So the side is showing a lot more maturity mentally.
In stifling heat, Adelaide entered the match sitting 4th on the ladder and with the best defensive record in the competition, but John Gibson proved City could also attack. 1-0, but the visitors weren't to be outdone. Liam Maguire soon found the equaliser. A second half lapse in concentration in defence and Adelaide hit the lead again. Michael Brooks the scorer, before Troy Halpin worked a neat 1-2 with Jason Bennett on the edge of the box to level it all up. A 2-2 draw, captain Troy Halpin is wrapped with the result.
We've got Ivanovic and Tobin who have played for Australia for many years at the back, and they're always a tough side to crack, but we managed to crack them twice and we're scoring goals on a regular basis, which is good.
In an unusual draw, the sides clash again on Friday, this time at Breakers Stadium. Harry James is available for selection after serving his suspension for that send-off against UGS Olympic, but coach Cosmina has suggested James won't be rushed back into the side.
I'm quite happy with the way everyone performed. I didn't bring any subs on last night, and everyone came through unscathed.
A family outing is a little different for the Greens. Father, Philip, is a nature lover and environmental educator. The Wadigan Forest has become his second home over the past 20 years, but even he was surprised by what he's just found in this giant backyard. It's the call of the rare red-crowned toadlet, which responds to the rumble of thunder or Philip's unique alternative. As strange as it sounds, it actually works, and 2 colonies have already been found in the forest. Unfortunately, urban development and water pollution have destroyed much of the frog's natural habitat.
It is listed on the National Parks and Wildlife Threatened Species Conservation Act. It is called a Schedule 2 species, and what that means is that it is rare and vulnerable.
It's even rarer to find them so far north, as the species only lives on a thin belt of sandstone ridges in the Sydney Basin. People interested in seeing the amphibians for themselves should contact State Forests to join one of Phillip's popular bushwalks.
Can you imagine a whole lot of adults taking off Tyler's tree frog? It goes like, or you can do a pobblebonk frog. It's pobblebonk, 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 real blast.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The equity of the New South Wales education system has come under close scrutiny this week. The revelation that the entire Year 12 at Mount Druitt scored in the bottom 45% of the state has highlighted how students in poorer areas perform far worse than those in rich suburbs. A move is now underway by several universities to offer special help to disadvantaged students. The University of Western Sydney has gone so far as to drop the tertiary entrance rank as the main method of selecting students. Newcastle University says while it won't be doing that, it is offering bonus points to local students.
We give a local preference of 5 points to students who come from high schools in the local area, and by local area I mean from the Central Coast all the way up to the border with Queensland and west to the western border, and students don't have to apply for that. It's just based on their school.
The university is also running a New Step enabling course for those who scored a low TER.
It's a one-year course which is HECS exempt, so students do not pay HECS for this course. All they pay is $100. It's a one-year full-time course, and students come in, and it's a preparation course for university study.
Applications for the course close at the end of January. Anyone with inquiries can call the university on 1800 636 466. Emma Ossian, NBN News.
Terry Venables received a warm welcome at Breaker Stadium with the Four Nations series kicking off in a fortnight. It was a much needed chance to assess his players' form. While Adelaide has a number of players in the squad, Newcastle has just one, Captain Troy Halpin. He's on standby, but a solid effort on the park last night drew praise from the Aussie boss at the post-match media conference. Venables admits he knew little of Halpin before the clash, but adds the striker's selection is justified.
While storm clouds gathered across the Hunters Vineyards today, a tempest of another sort was brewing. Disgruntled wine growers angry that proposed housing developments will crush tourism in the region.
If we start seeing housing estates and washing and all the rest of it, it is not going to be the same place, and we're going to lose the romance that this valley is all about.
But wine growers say Cessnock City Council doesn't appear to share this view, approving 2 subdivisions in Pecolbin last year. It was a decision the state government eventually overturned. Now wine growers want to stop future developers moving in on their turf.
The plan now, of course, is for a new LEP to be written, and when I went down to the Department of Planning with the Mayor of Cessnock, this was the agreement.
The council is expected to release the new local environmental plan in March.
The raid on the Putty Road property late last year by members of the police anti-theft squad was the culmination of a month-long surveillance operation. Those before Singleton Court today included the owner of the property, 56-year-old John Stokes, and his 31-year-old son Kevin. Between them, it's alleged they received a number of stolen vehicles, including a Volvo Prime Mover and semi-trailer and several four-wheel drives. Charges presented by police include possession of a number of unlicensed firearms, including 2 pistols. Prosecutor Sergeant Terry Gannon sought an adjournment of the charges against the father and son, telling Magistrate Col Elliott that the matters arise from a police operation and that inquiries are still ongoing. The 2 men were not required to enter pleas and were bailed to appear before the Singleton Court again next month. Also not required to enter a plea, 46-year-old Paul Rudd, charged with car theft and possessing an unlicensed shotgun. He was also remanded to reappear in February. At the same time, Singleton detectives interviewed another 2 men today in connection with the Putty raid, charging a 25-year-old North Richmond man with stealing a tractor. He was bailed to appear in Singleton Court next month. Police say they are still trying to identify 14 vehicles discovered at the mill. Meanwhile, investigations by the Environment Protection Authority into an alleged toxic waste dump found on the 15 square kilometre property are continuing. Phil Hind, NBN News. It's been the worst start to the state's road toll in 15 years. Almost half the victims have perished on country roads. Less than a day after the RTA announced an inquiry into the carnage, the state opposition has put forward a raft of proposals to halt the slaughter. The most radical, limiting the number of hours drivers can spend on the roads.
The truck drivers operate the same system, and it's been to some improvement in road safety, and I think private motorists ought to also be considering that same sort of program.
However, Mr Souris concedes it would be almost impossible to police. The coalition is also calling for an audit of the state's road black spots. Following the federal government's announcement it will reintroduce black spot funding, the opposition wants the state's so-called 3x3 fuel tax spent solely on the roads.
40 million per annum is being eroded from that tax to Sydney railway stations and public transport initiatives. They may be good initiatives, but the money belongs to the roads.
Along with the NRMA, the opposition is demanding more driver education. Mr Souris says at least one campaign must target city drivers venturing onto country roads.
A little bit of extra education at an adult level wouldn't go astray for city drivers.
Phil Hind, NBN News.
Wildcloud was proving hard to catch on its Maitland property this afternoon. The 4-year-old gelding is trainer Darren Elder's only starter in the intercity pace, but a bad draw has spoiled its chances of being hard to catch tomorrow.
A lot better if I was to stay on the back line, but being outside the front line it makes it a bit harder.
The winner of 4 from 14 was given a light run on the eve of Maitland's big race. At first a one-off session, but the rest of the stable couldn't resist a trot. They joined in to lend their support, but everyone is aware of the danger in the final. Race favourite, the Hakuna Matata.
Yeah, the Hakuna Matata, he goes pretty good. I think a lot will happen, and whatever happens on the first corner will be the thing. Whether he crosses Frankie lots more, I don't know.
The Hakuna Matata won its heat last weekend at Maitland in blistering style. An incredible turn of pace at the home turn kicked the Sydney-based pacer clear. Also in the early market is Vivacious Hanover. It won Heat 5. Shying away from the local chances, Gary Harley agrees the Hakuna Matata is the one to beat. Maitland Race 5, number 6. The bikes are back at the Newcastle International Motordrome. Round 7 of the Masters Series has brought riders from America, the Czech Republic, Denmark, Poland and England. Overnight rain closed the track, but a handful of competitors were able to familiarise themselves with the inside circuit. After a slow start to the series, Greg Hancock is issuing a late challenge. With 4 rounds remaining, the American is 4th and closing the gap on the top 3. The 26-year-old won last night's racing at Parramatta and hopes to keep up the speed tomorrow.
Exactly, I'm looking forward to it. I came here 2 years ago and I had a fairly decent meeting, but the track's completely different now. They've done some work to it and increased the banking, so it should make for better racing.
Bike troubles in Western Australia, South Australia and Victoria has world champion Simon Wigg off the pace, but he too is looking for a comeback.
The sport's sort of like that, really. You know, you need the luck of the dice sometimes, and you know. But I'm looking forward to getting back in there, and there's still 4 metres to go, and anything can happen.
And countryman Kelvin Tatum is also one to watch. The Englishman has been one of the most consistent riders to date.
As long as you can be pretty consistent and stay near. Obviously the grand final in Brisbane, there are double points there, so it'll be important to stay in contention right until the last meeting.
It's sick animals like Judith too that the Koala Preservation Society want to help. Koalas suffering from a sexually transmitted disease called chlamydia.
Her eyes were closed with pus and scabs, very dehydrated, and she's also very, very much underweight.
The Society has asked the National Parks and Wildlife's permission to euthanise 60 sick koalas at the Tomago sandbeds. They claim the animals are unwell because they've been forced from the area by sand mining companies.
I would prefer them to be euthanised if they're sick rather than knocked down by a bulldozer, broken limbs, go into stress, nowhere to go.
While the fate of the animals remains unresolved, RZN continues to sand mine, moving steadily towards the last remaining enclave of koalas.
Our colony, I can't see it lasting 10 years. They're just too good to destroy.
A resolution should be reached over the weekend. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
The winner, Dorita, paid $7 and $2.10. Second, Marquee Moon, $2.90 and Rich Kin, $2.30. The Quinella, $49.40. The Trifecta, $634.50. They were also racing at Tamworth. The feature race 7 over 1,200 metres. Number 3, Red Smoky, $6.20 and $1.70. Second place, Dadsky, $3.80 and Mark Time, $3.30. The Quinella, $53. The Trifecta, $1,056.20.
The carnival, hosted by the Woolgoolga Athletics Club, was the third and final event of the championships to decide this year's top junior and senior athletics club and the individual age champions. Coffs Harbour won the senior shield, while Lismore claimed the under 12 years competition. The carnival provided a chance for athletes of all abilities to compete.
It gives also the better athletes a chance to compete against their peers, and gives the recreational athlete a chance to run, jump and throw as much as they like.
For some athletes, like Australian heptathlon champion Melissa Tucker of Woolgoolga and highly ranked long jumper Aaron Kennedy of Coffs Harbour, it was their last serious hit-out before the New South Wales Country Championships next weekend at Homebush.
Well, we've positioned the event as a warm-up because it's the week before, And although the track's very heavy following the rain, it still gives people the opportunity to stretch their legs after Christmas.
The championships also saw at least one record broken. Overnight rain may have made the track heavy, but it didn't stop Nathan White of the Woolgoolga Club setting a new branch record in the hammer throw with a distance of over 28 metres.
Little is being said about Mr Byron's sudden departure, which caught staff at the Mater by surprise. It is known that he resigned 2 years into his 3-year contract after discussions with the hospital's management group, Catholic Healthcare, which said today that it appreciated the dedicated service he'd given, but felt new challenges needed someone with different skills. Also not commenting on the changes at the Mater was the Chief Executive of the Hunter Area Health Service.
It's really an internal matter for the Sisters of Mercy and Catholic Healthcare. We've very much appreciated working with Mr Byron, and we're sure that the new appointee will work closely with the Area Health Service and keep that strong partnership going.
And changes are in store for all major hospitals in the region, with the long-running acute hospital planning study nearing completion.
The Mater Hospital has been going through a series of changes over the last couple of years, certainly consolidating its role as a major centre for cancer and oncology services in the Hunter, and also as part of the acute hospitals planning study, we anticipate a significant expansion of services at the Mater Hospital over the next decade.
News of the management upheaval at the Mater coincides with speculation that the Area Health Service Chief, Dr Tim Smythe, could become the new Director General of the Department of Health. But Dr Smythe is having none of that.
My priority is with the Hunter Area Health Service. I've made a commitment to the Hunter Area Health Service, and I certainly see that's going to be occupying centre stage as far as my career is concerned for the foreseeable future.
So that you haven't heard anything about it?
Rescuers found the Honduran crewman clinging to a life ring several kilometres off the coast. The Westpac helicopter lowered a paramedic, but the rescue was anything but routine. The crewman had attached himself to a raft by more than 100 metres of rope, which became entangled and threatened to drag him under.
Whenever we got him out of the ring and got him into open water where we could conduct the winch, he just fought his way back into the life ring and hung on for grim death, basically.
Eventually, it was left to the crew of a police launch to drag the panic-stricken sailor from the water. Although rescue services were only alerted at 10 o'clock this morning, it's believed the man may have gone overboard just after midnight. He was taken ashore suffering hypothermia, placed on a ventilator and rushed to Newcastle Hospital.
He's very lucky. He's still very ill at this stage, but he is a very lucky man.
Late this afternoon, the man was released from hospital and into the care of customs officials. After questioning, he was detained at the Newcastle Police Headquarters under the Immigration Act. According to an official of the International Transport Workers Federation, the man leapt over the side of the MV Hunter to alert Australian authorities to conditions on board. The vessel has been at anchor off Newcastle for almost a week, unable to enter port after the captain refused to allow maritime inspectors on board.
Well, certainly there must be atrocious conditions on board the ship for this sort of thing to occur.
It's understood the owners of the Panamanian registered vessel have flown in another crew from the Philippines to replace the men currently on board.
We'll be ensuring that before they're replaced, they'll be adequately compensated for the wages while they've been on the ship and repatriated back to the Philippines without any discrimination.
Meanwhile, the MV Hunter sits at anchor, unloaded and unable to dock. Phil Hind, NBN News.
Pint-sized busker Christy Brady isn't exactly singing for a supper. She's singing so she can pursue a musical career and continue her charity work. But the area has proven so popular that buskers are turning up the volume to outdo each other.
Like, I wasn't going to be stupid and turn my music up so I could blast them out. But yeah, I think they're trying to have a competition with me.
12-year-old Christy has a permit to perform. The problem is her competition doesn't. Lake Macquarie Council doesn't have the power to enforce permits, but is now moving to regulate busking in the area. As for Christie, she'll get her money back.
That there shouldn't be any attempt at taking any funds from anybody because we can't regulate it. So she will get a refund as far as I'm concerned.
Meanwhile, the buskers were happier at the Shortland Wetlands Centre today, promoting World Wetlands Day. As part of the inaugural World Wetlands Day, performers will be busking with the birds on February the 2nd. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
There were few in the audience who didn't know how to get to Sesame Street today. The latest extravaganza from the furry favourites is the first to visit Australia in 8 years. The show managed to hold the short attention spans of the preschoolers for a full hour and a half.
If you're lucky enough to be in the floor seating area, you get to touch, shake a hand or get a hug, and that definitely keeps them kind of focused on the show.
As with the television show, the stage production is a mix of entertainment and education. The show is called When I Grow Up and looks at possible career alternatives for the Sesame Street cast. The show features 13 Broadway-style production numbers and 33 songs and sing-alongs. Those behind the show say it's not just for the young, but the young at heart.
A lot of the adults grew up with Sesame Street, so they know them just as much as the kids do. And then the newer characters, they kind of say, to their little son or daughter, and now who's that, But Big Bird, Bert and Ernie, the whole gang, they're here.
Sesame Street Live plays until Sunday. Phil Hind, NBN News.
For the team brought in for the harvest, it was all systems go. The crush had begun. 40 tonnes of Pinot Noir grapes hauled in at the McWilliams winery, heralding the start of the 1997 season.
It looks like a bumper crop, really. There's been fantastic weather. We've had a wonderful growing season. Now there's lovely sunshine, they're ripening up and it looks great.
Winemakers throughout the region say it's been the best growing season for years. And while the yield may not be as high as previous vintages, ideal weather conditions have laid the foundations for top quality grapes.
Last year the drought was broken, we had a good crop last year. And this year the vines have recovered very well and you can taste the flavour in the grapes now, so what's out there looks really exciting.
The excitement when harvesting starts is almost tangible. It's the culmination of a lot of hard work and expectations are high.
At the moment everyone's very enthusiastic and very fired up. We work for 10 months of the year to get to this stage and we can't wait to get our hands dirty.
Today it was a case of settling into the routine, testing the sugar levels of the grapes and fine-tuning equipment. By mid-March, mechanical harvesters, locals, viticulture students and the odd backpacker will haul in 1,800 tonnes of grapes for this winery alone. While here a team of 30 pickers is already hard at work, harvesting throughout the valley will begin in earnest over the next couple of weeks. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.